I can't tell if it's working or not.
I have an indicator that says meeting is streaming live.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, well then I guess it worked.
So we're good? Okay. So we will, everyone good to go? All right, we're going to have an indicator that says meeting is streaming live.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm hearing my own voice in a feedback loop.
That means you have two things logged on at once?
No, I don't. Someone has it on
That was
YouTube
me. I
at
was
the
playing
same
on
time.
YouTube, sorry.
Aha, okay. Now we can go. Now we will call the meeting to order. This is a city administration committee meeting. We are slowly getting better at doing these meetings via this technology. So welcome everyone who might be watching. We normally do an agenda review. So I don't have any changes to the agenda. Does anyone else? Nope. Okay, hearing none. We do have the minutes that came in from Denise, so we will just need someone is willing to move the minutes. If you, I can see everyone, so if you just want to do a hand raise. Graham, seconded by Rob. So all those in favor of approving our minutes from March, and that carries unanimously. Hi, Svante. I did not.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, you can.
It was recommended by NICOM that because of the technology that we do like roll call votes.
Okay.
Just so everybody, so it's kind of clear how everybody votes. So just you can just run through every member. Everybody keeps dropping out and coming back in. Anyway, yeah, just ask each member to vote and then indicate how they voted.
Deb, I had a question. I think Denise sent 2 sets of minutes. Are we just moving the March ones? I thought she sent the February ones as well.
I did because we did not approve those yet.
Okay. So let's go back and we'll do this again and we'll do it as a roll call. Sorry, I'm just making notes here so I don't miss anybody. Are we okay you moving February and March?
I'll move those, both of them.
So Graham is moving it.
I can second that. It's Rob.
Rob is seconded. So then how are we voting? Graham?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
George?
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so that's unanimous. All right. I did not receive any comments from the comment form from the public. Dan, is that correct, that we did not receive any comments? Okay. So we don't need to have any response. We have nothing on our consent. And so our first voting item this evening is establishing a capital project for the boiler room. Does someone want to attempt to move this, or do you want me to just move all of them like we did at the last meeting?
I can read this because I got a paper copy.
Okay, go for it, George, then. That's fine.
3.1 capital project engineering phase for boiler room evaluation at the Ithaca Area Wastewater Treatment Facility. Whereas the Ithaca Area Wastewater Treatment Facility is in need of reliable boilers used for comfort heating of indoor spaces and for process heating of the anaerobic digesters. And whereas the current boilers are reaching the end of their useful service life and are increasingly unreliable and maintenance intensive. And whereas an evaluation of heating requirements and energy sources for current as well as future anticipated plant and process needs is necessary. And whereas an engineering evaluation cost estimate has been prepared by MRB Group for a lump sum of $18,500, which includes A, boiler evaluation, assess existing boilers and identify replacement boiler options. B, energy evaluation. A is evaluate biogas and natural gas usage at the plant. B, evaluate redundancy needs. C, evaluate biogas use in microturbines with heat recovery versus use for heating. D, consider potential heating needs for future sludge processing projects. And E, check for current grant funding opportunities to see if either the study design phase or construction phase might be eligible. And whereas the Special Joint Committee, the SJC, approved said capital project at their regular meeting of March 18th, 2020, now therefore be it resolved that Common Council hereby establishes the IAWWTF Capital Project 423J boiler room evaluation in an amount not to exceed $18,500. And be it further resolved that Common Council hereby recommends to the IAWWTF owners that this project be authorized and funded from the IAWWTF Capital Reserve Fund in an amount not to exceed $18,500 for the engineering costs required for Ithaca area wastewater treatment facility boiler room evaluation. I so move.
Is there a second? I see Duck. Okay. EJ, do
Yes.
you want to talk about this, or do we want to just see if anyone has questions?
If anyone wants to have any questions, I can give you, can you hear me, everyone?
We can.
Just a brief background. We've got two 32-year-old boilers. They've been there since the plant was built, and the biogas one is kind of unreliable. It doesn't tend to run. We've done a lot of work to it over the years. They both have internal leaks which self-heal, and as long as you leave it alone, it's fine. But the longer it goes on, the longer it's likely that there's going to end up being an unresolvable failure. So one is a smaller boiler that uses biogas, and when we have excess, we can use that, but we really need natural gas, a solid natural gas. So one of our other older boilers is a dual fuel boiler. And that has the same issues with a lot of internal leaks. We recently had to replace a blower motor, and fortunately, one of the old boilers we had decommissioned had the same part. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to get a repair part for it. They don't make it anymore. And in between that, we have two newer natural gas high efficiency boilers, which have proved to be incredibly unreliable and maintenance intensive. Part of it, I think, is the brand, and part of it is the atmosphere at the plant. There's low levels of things that just seem to be incredibly corrosive to it. And the bottom line is, I really need to have solid, steady heat, both for human comfort and for purposes of our digesters. We need to have them heated to 98 degrees year round in order to have, it helps create methane, but it also helps treat our, it creates Class B biosolids, which is necessary for disposal at the landfill. And additionally, moving forward, because of landfill costs, we are probably going to end up pursuing some form of sludge drying, which will help reduce costs at the landfill. And so by hiring this consultant, I really want him to look holistically at our current energy needs and our likely future needs to help us continue to meet our permit requirements. And I just feel like right now we don't have solid, reliable heating, especially in the dead of winter. It's been kind of hit and miss sometimes.
Great. Are there any questions for CJ? George?
Hi, CJ.
Hi.
The fact that these high efficiency boilers were bought less than 5 years ago and they don't really work well is very disappointing.
Yes.
Does that suggest that a high efficiency natural gas boiler is not the way to go? That the
That's one of
heavier
the, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That's one of the things I want the consultant to look into. I specifically mentioned that. They might be a little older than 5 years. I can't remember if it's somewhere between 5 and 8. And it is incredibly disappointing. They were installed as part of an energy performance contract, and the boiler tech from Johnson Controls, they're the people who oversaw it, has given some fairly detailed reports to his the people above him. I'm not sure if there's anything that can be done about that. And so I don't know if there's any recourse as far as what was installed and how disappointing it is, but they have taken note of the fact that, and I'm not sure if it's just the fact they're high efficiency or if it's the brand or if it's a combination. And that's one of the things I want the engineer from MRB to look into is, does it make more sense to go with a more conventional, robust boiler in the long run? So we will be looking at that. And again, also looking at how many boilers and what style.
I apologize if this is a silly question, but the agenda says that one's in better shape than the other of the high efficiency ones. And I'm wondering if it makes sense to repurpose those as part of the backup system. And so we've got parts for.
And that's one of the things I'm actually having them look at also is, like I said, I really want to look at it holistically. Does it make sense? And does it make sense to do one at a time? Does, you know, what in the big scheme of things is actually going to make the most sense in terms of both monetary efficiency and operational efficiency? If it's going to make sense, you know, whatever the final recommendation is, there are certain economies of scale if you come in and get everything configured at once when everyone's on site, as opposed to one at a time. But then again, there's economic realities, and all this has, when I first was going down this path, things were, you know, it was a couple months ago, maybe 3 months ago, and obviously a lot of things have changed since then. So I'm really wanting him to do a full report and make some recommendations on that and give different options.
But then we meaning you, get to pick how we go. So we're not just going with.
Oh, absolutely not. No. He at the end of this, he will probably make recommendations, or possibly several recommendations, or have present different recommendations and options. And I tend to go, my way of operating, no matter what area it has been at the plant, I tend to try to find people that I've had a history with, that I trust, that are reliable, and ask a few questions and generally take their recommendations whenever possible.
Right.
Graham?
I thought you
CJ,
froze.
thanks. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I guess, so in any spending of money right now, we're I guess faced with, do we need to do this right now? You know, what are the impacts if we don't do this at this stage? I guess if you can address that first.
Sure. This, and also the next thing that's coming up, I feel like I have lost quite a bit of reliable redundancy. Almost everything at the plant has a redundancy, and between the newer high efficiency ones, I've quite often had one of them down during the year, the past 3 years since I've been in charge of this. Quite often one will go down, and one of the high efficiency will not make enough heat when it's cold. And I've had some similar issues with the old dual fuel. When that's running right, that can put out a whole lot of heat on natural gas, but that's the one that had a problem with the blower. And right now it's making some noises. I think there's some other things going on. And right now, coming into spring, I don't feel as bad, that we'll be able to get by with what we make on biogas, and with at least one other natural gas boiler, we'll be fine. Going into next winter, I would have this sort of gnawing in my gut that at any moment I could lose the necessary BTUs I need to keep both the digester and the building warm enough.
And if you can give me some sense of, so this funding is coming from the Capital Reserve Fund. Do you know what the level of that fund is right now? I mean, how much-
Steve can probably
Steve?
help me out on that. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Yeah, there's roughly $252,000 in that current fund.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Cynthia and then George.
Just keeping in mind that these are projects for the wastewater treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant is owned by 3 municipalities. It has a separate budget line in the water and sewer fund. And it has these costs are going to be distributed amongst the 3 partners with regards to capital projects. Our wastewater treatment service is an essential service that will need to continue to function to not only serve our community, but also to protect the environment and the lake. But just again, a quick reminder that this is separate from the city budget. It is an individual budget for the wastewater treatment plant.
George? You're muted, George. You got to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. That was basically my question, that this is actually not coming out of the city's money. It's coming out of the wastewater treatment plants.
Yes, that's correct.
profit. So the 3 parties, like the second thing we're going to talk about tonight is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So
Rob?
just for clarification, so is the 18.5 all on the city or is that divided? The
It's-
$18,500.
Steve can correct me if I'm wrong. That's coming out of our capital reserve fund that's already existing at the wastewater facility.
Right, okay.
Yeah, right. It's all coming out of the Capital Reserve Fund, which is already been funded by the 3 partners. So it's already been allocated between the 3 partners.
Moving forward, and Steve and I and everyone else will be talking about that as far as when we do have a recommendation and hopefully go forward and put something out for bid, that may come from bonds or something like that. I don't know. That's sort of out of my league.
Yes, it would come from bonds more than likely, depending on how much the cost of the full project is, which.
And I'm sure I will be sitting before this group again, trying to make the case for that.
Yes.
That will be a few months down the road. And hopefully what I'm hoping is that this project, if this moves forward, so Common Council will have to approve it. I believe Dryden and Town of Ithaca already did, but there may or may not be a 30-day waiting period. When this kicks off, it's going to be up to 3 months for the evaluation. And what I'm hoping is that by fall, I will be able to be going out, or prior to fall, going out for bid and get some work started before the winter. That's my hope. But so you will probably be hearing from me again on this issue.
Great. Any other questions on this particular one? All right, so we'll do roll call again. Graham?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Duck?
Aye.
George? You're muted, George.
Aye.
Just do this. Oh no, we need the verbal. All
Okay.
right.
Use the
And I'm
R-
also a yes, so we're unanimous. All right. Does anyone want to move 3.2? You want me to do it?
Sure, I'll move this one.
Thanks.
So this is a capital project for replacement pumps and piping for the active flow high rate sand ballasted tertiary treatment phosphorus removal system at the Ithaca wastewater treatment plant. We all know what one of those is, right? Whereas the wastewater treatment plant requires tertiary treatment for phosphorus removal to meet discharge permit limits, and whereas the current system has lost redundancy due to sand pump and chemical pump failures, and whereas the current style and age of pumps have contributed to redundancy and reliability concerns, and whereas piping associated with the system has worn thin in places due to the abrasive sand pumped in the system, and whereas electronic and control systems associated with the chemical feed system do not meet current standards, whereas Kostler Associates are the exclusive local representatives for the Kruger ActiFlow system, and whereas a proposal has been provided by Kostler Associates for $93,350, which includes supply and install of 2 McLennan 3x3 sand pumps with some details about those pumps, and then B, supply and install 2 Verda 5000 peristaltic chemical feed pumps, and there's some details about those pieces of equipment. Whereas a contingency fund of 10%, that's $9,335, is necessary to allow for replacement of piping discovered to be deteriorated or failing. That is not covered by the above work, subject to a time and material proposal, in addition to electrical and instrumentation work associated with new pump and installation. And whereas the Special Joint Subcommittee approved said project at their regular meeting of April 15th, 2020, now therefore be it resolved that Common Council hereby establishes the Ithaca Wastewater Treatment Plant Capital Project for XXJ, replacement pumps and piping for the ActiFlow tertiary treatment phosphorus removal system in an amount not to exceed $102,685. And be it further resolved that Common Council hereby recommends authorization of this project contingent upon action by all wastewater treatment partners, committing their percentage of reimbursement shares to the Joint Activity Fund allocated per the Joint Sewer Agreement as follows. And there's a breakdown: City of Ithaca 57.14%, Town of Ithaca 40.88%, and the Town of Dryden 1.98%, for a total of $102,685. And I so move.
Is there a second? Rob, thank you.
And before the editors say anything, it's actually the Special Joint Committee. There was a typo. And we do have a capital project number.
Oh, good. That was what I was going to ask. The XX should probably be a number, right?
It's 424.
Great.
Yes.
I forgot to talk to Steve about that.
Okay.
Thanks, CJ.
Yes.
I'm assuming those are friendly changes.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have questions about this?
If you'd
Anyone?
like, oh,
Well, if there aren't any questions, then
keep my mouth shut.
I guess we're good.
Okay.
Steve has his hand up.
Yeah.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, one note I just noticed here, we should add to the first resolve after removal system, it should say to be funded from the issuance of serial bonds.
Okay. I'm assuming that's also friendly.
Yep. So that's after, oh, I see.
Yeah.
In the first resolve, Steve, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yep. Got it.
Okay. No questions on this one? So we'll do another roll call. Graham,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Duck,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
and I'm a yes. That's also unanimous. All right. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you so much. Are you
You
done
can
with
hang
me?
out with us for the rest of the meeting if you want, but
I'm gonna go make tomorrow's meal for my parents.
all right. Sounds great.
Sounds good. Thanks, CJ.
Thanks so
Actually,
much. Thank you for your
CJ
time. Yes?
CJ, before you go, isn't there still the item later on the agenda with regards to the outfall easement? Is
I
that
wasn't,
still on the agenda for today?
it is, and they had listed as presenters as Ari, and that was it. I'm not sure I have anything useful to add.
Okay,
Um,
sorry.
no. I actually had this, I was going to ask if they were through with me, but I thought that was all.
Yeah, I am prepared to present on that. You're more than
I
welcome.
think
to
we're
join us.
good, yeah.
Okay. It's out of my pay grade.
Well, you're still very important to us, CJ.
And
I
you
think
and
we're
you to
okay with
us.
you. All right,
Say hi to Mark.
I shall.
Thank you.
Thanks, CJ.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, CJ.
Thanks.
You too.
Yep.
Okay. 3.3, does someone want to move that?
Read this one.
Okay, thank you.
Establishment of fee for use of right-of-way and to authorize approval of a master license agreement for small cell facilities with 4G and 5G capability. Whereas Verizon has expressed interest in installing small cell or wireless facilities with 4G and 5G capability on poles, primarily situated within the city's right-of-way. Whereas through the master license agreement and design guidelines, the city will retain ultimate control and authority over installations within the city's right-of-way, including small cell or wireless facilities. Now therefore be it resolved that Common Council authorizes the following fees, which may be updated from time to time, for small cell or wireless facilities using poles within the right-of-way. One-time pole license application fees, $500 for an application attaching up to 5 facilities, and $100 for each additional attachment beyond 5, and $1,000 for a new pole. City-owned poles, $270 per pole per year. Privately owned poles, $135 per pole per year. Resolved that the mayor, subject to the advice of the city attorney, is authorized to enter into an agreement substantially similar to the master license agreement included herewith, requiring that Verizon comply with the included preliminary design guidelines, which guidelines may be updated at any time on the determination of the director of planning. That's the move.
Is there a second? Graham? And I do think we want to change mayor to acting mayor. Is that correct? Because of a conflict? Svante, are you listening?
I think that's wise. Yes.
He's muted. If you're trying to talk, Svante, you're muted. Maybe not.
I believe the mayor also.
Apologies.
Ah, hello.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Technical
Yeah.
difficulty.
Yes. I
Yep.
can hear you now.
Okay. Very sorry. I'm actually watching all of you. I guess I'm on a delay. I'm watching you on a bigger screen so that I can see deep into your houses, I guess. Yeah. So for this item, yeah. Wow. And I'm like 20 seconds behind. Okay. I shouldn't do it this way. For this item, there's not. So I'm recusing myself. I've been recusing myself, and Deb's been acting as mayor on this item for the last several months because I do have a relative that works for Verizon, and just to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest, and even though I have no financial stake whatsoever in the decision, I'll be recusing myself, and I'll be leaving the meeting and then dialing back in if somebody will text me when the vote is over.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Questions on this? George?
How many, can you,
No, you were fine.
were
but you
unmuted.
muted yourself.
all right, you can hear me now, right?
Yes.
How many of these boxes are they thinking about putting up in the city?
Sure. I don't know exact numbers, but it's it's a substantial number in the end. I think it ends up maybe in the ballpark of very roughly 100, somewhere in that ballpark, but I don't know exact numbers. I do know a few other points I should probably make though. One, is that I think, and we can each judge for ourselves, but I think 5G may be particularly beneficial to Ithaca in the current social distancing context in which we're all living. It'll help with connectivity in a variety of ways. Another is that despite that first statement, the rollout from Verizon of actual installation is not likely to start until fall because there's various engineering they need to do, as I understand it, in order to get the installations in place, but they won't complete that. They won't even start the process of completing that engineering until we give them the go-ahead with this license agreement, which is why it is useful for us to move now if we can. And then there are design guidelines that will be incorporated into the license agreement. Staff are still working on those in engineering and planning, and will loop back to council in time for a final council vote no later than the July council meeting with those design guidelines. But we've informed Verizon, and we have agreement with Verizon, that there will be no applications filed by Verizon with us prior to that July council meeting, so they won't be able to front run the design guidelines, so to speak. Which will be a technical document to protect our right of way and our functionality there. Sorry for the other stuff, but.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see what they look like and how big they are.
So again, that will you'll get a look at that from a design guideline perspective at a future committee and then council meeting. It's just important if we want to stay on a timeline that could have fall installation. It's important to move the master license agreement forward now if we can, because that will enable the engineering process to move forward.
I saw Graham and then Donna.
Yeah, so I'm pleased to hear that. I mean, a little concerned whether these are going to be existing poles or whether they're going to be new ones. I mean, as you know, Ari, in several areas of the city, including College Town, we've actually got NICEAG to take the poles down and bury the lines. I wouldn't want those to be replaced by 4 and 5G cells, either on the outsides of buildings or on poles. So I'm assuming that those guidelines that you refer to will cover that kind of question. Is that right?
That is right. And additionally, my understanding is that it will predominantly be existing poles that will accommodate these. And the city will, within the license agreement and the design guidelines, have the authority to prevent locations that our staff consider inappropriate, so they can account for that as well.
And just quickly following up, so ye olde 3G, how do they manage that? Do they have these boxes around the city right now, or is this a new capacity that we haven't seen before?
So this is a new capacity, and it's a new capacity because I'm no expert in cell technology, but as I understand it, current cell technology is tower based, right? We have cell towers around the city, and these are like dorm room size refrigerator size boxes. So they're not towers. We need to have more of them, but they're much smaller, maybe the size of a large microwave or a dorm, my rough understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
And so they are needed more commonly across the city in order to serve the same function.
Yeah, the range is a lot smaller, so you need more of them closer to the users than towers, which can just be on hills and stuff.
Donna, did you still have a question?
Yes, I had also been curious about the size and the appearance. So it's reassuring to know that they're small boxes and not enormous towers like the one on South Hill. But I have another question as well. I don't think there's any scientific basis for the opposition to 5G, but I think there are people out there who think it causes diseases or something. So I'm wondering if we have any obligation to have any kind of public hearing about this, just so that those people can be scientifically refuted.
So we don't have any legal obligation to hold a public hearing of that sort. I don't claim to be aware of the specific allegations around health impacts. But the other important point to make that I think speaks to this procedurally is that it's the FCC on the federal level that has approved the rollout of 5G nationwide. And we have limited land use authority to manage that rollout in Ithaca, but I don't believe we would have the legal authority to simply deny installation flat out under any and all circumstances, regardless. It's more of a design guideline, fee, process, permitting authority that we have than a question of can 5G come here or not.
Okay, thank you.
Just like with cell towers.
Yeah.
George, did you have another question or is your?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I just want to understand if there's approximately 100 of these wireless facilities going up, in that the first 5 we charge a one-time pole license of $500, and the next 95 it's only $100. Is that? Am I reading that right?
No, I don't. No, I believe that. So for the first 5, we charge for any. So for someone for a vendor, because this schedule would ultimately apply to others besides Verizon if they also come in and want to install 5G, right? If other cell companies come in. But so what it's saying is that a company that came in that wanted to install 5 or less has to pay $500, and for each additional attachment, it's another $100. Unless there's a new pole, in which case it's $1,000. So in short, it averages out to $100 per installation, as long as there's not a new pole, regardless. And then there's also a recurring per year fee that you can see down below that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any additional questions on this? Graham?
So I guess the fees were determined how? You had some kind of algorithm or formula, or there's a recommendation?
No, that's a good question. So there's a federal, per the FCC, there's a federal safe harbor fee amount that is basically recommended, which is these fees. And we believe that's the right approach. We don't believe that this will be a major revenue generator. We do believe that it has the potential to be of substantial help to the public in terms of connectivity. And therefore, we believe that fighting, and I think it would be a fight over the fees, is not advisable. To that point, I'll also add that there is one upstate municipality, I believe it's Rochester, though I'm not positive of that did set their fees substantially higher, and as a result is currently in litigation with Verizon over that fee level. That's not the path that I recommend for the city at this juncture. I believe that the 5G can be beneficial to us, and that we are unlikely to turn this into a major revenue generator, at least without a great deal of litigation, and probably even then by setting it notably higher. So that's my recommendation, but certainly council's prerogative if you would prefer to go down that road.
That sounds fine, Ari. I was just curious about where the numbers came from.
Sure, thanks.
Great. Any other questions on this one? George, is that a question or just, no, you're good.
Did I leave my thing up there?
No, you muted and unmuted, so I didn't know if you were preparing to say something.
No, I just don't know what I'm doing.
No, you're fine. It's good. We're all getting used to it. All right, so we'll do a roll call again. Graham?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Duck?
Aye.
George?
All right.
And I'm also a yes, so that's unanimous. Does someone want to move 4.1?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you, Rob.
Let me just get there. Hold on. 4.1. This is an authorization to enter into a maintenance agreement with City Harbor LLC, whereas City Harbor LLC has acquired the property known as 101 Pier Road, City of Ithaca, the City Harbor property, and intends to redevelop the City Harbor property into a mixed-use residential project. We'll refer to it as the project. And whereas the City Harbor has proposed certain improvements and long-term maintenance to Pier Road and portions of adjacent city-owned land as part of City Harbor's project, as described in the draft agreement attached as Exhibit A, and depicted in the plan attached as Exhibit B. And whereas city staff is generally supportive of such improvements, provided that The improvements are installed under a street permit with installation subject to the city's specifications and final approval, and hence, and thence becoming city property. All city-owned land and facilities improved by the project remain open to the public and not exclusive to the project or City Harbor. And City Harbor commits to maintaining the improvements in accordance with an approved plan. See draft proposals in exhibits A and B. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council hereby authorizes the mayor to execute a maintenance agreement with City Harbor containing substantially similar terms as the enclosed development and maintenance agreement between the City of Ithaca and City Harbor LLC. That's exhibit B, upon approval by the Superintendent of Public Works and City Attorney.
Is there a second? Graham, thank you. Are there questions on this, or Ari, do you want to talk about it at all first?
I think it's reasonably self-explanatory, so I guess I defer to questions.
Great. Questions from anyone? Graham?
Just quickly, Ari, if the ownership of this project changes hands, this maintenance agreement goes forward to the next owners or whatever, is that
Yes,
the case?
yes, that's right.
Okay, thank
Other questions? Okay, so we'll do a roll call again. Graham?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
George?
I actually think this is a very solid agreement, but I think we're giving City Harbor too much city land to work with. I basically don't consider these necessarily improvements, so I'm going to vote against this.
Okay. And then I'm a yes, so that passes 4-1. Someone want to move 4.2?
I'll do that. .2, an ordinance to release and terminate the city's abandoned sewer easement and amend the city's outfall line easement. An ordinance to release and terminate the city's abandoned sewer easement and amend the city's outfall line easement. I read that twice. Whereas presently before Common Council is a proposal requesting that the city release its rights to a
George? We lost you.
Okay.
Oh, he's back.
You're freezing and then not. Maybe, so does someone else want to read it?
Sure. George, are you okay with that?
You're still muted, George. Now we can't hear you at all because you're muted.
How about now?
That's good. Do you want to continue or? Yeah, it's.
No, you're frozen again, George.
Okay, I give up.
Okay.
Only George had 5G internet connection.
I stay up late at night wishing I had 5G.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Yeah, I'll
Speed read. Just read every fourth word so that way we can,
I'll just freeze occasionally.
figure it out.
Okay, so as George said, an ordinance to release and terminate city's abandoned sewer easement and amend the city's outfall line easement. Whereas presently before Common Council is a proposal requesting that the city release its rights to a 10-foot wide sewer easement, beginning at the northerly shore of Cascadilla Creek, running westerly through parcels located on Pier Road, known as tax map numbers given there, recorded with the Tompkins County Clerk as book 243, page 89, and 2, to amend an existing easement for the wastewater treatment facility's effluent outfall easement, to authorize construction above the easement area, which begins at the north shore of Cascadilla Creek and runs north through the parcel owned by City Harbor LLC, known as tax map 17-1 point 1.3 recorded with the Tompkins County Clerk as book 595, page 509. And whereas City Harbor LLC and the Guthrie Clinic, property owners of the respective tax parcels, have requested that the city release its rights to the sewer easement and amend its rights under the outfall easement. And whereas the city is no longer in need of the sewer easement and can continue to service the existing effluent outfall with restrictions on overhead construction, and city staff are supportive of releasing the sewer easement and amending the outfall easement to allow construction above certain conditions to which City Harbor LLC has agreed. And whereas in consideration of the city's release of its rights to the sewer easement, which is limited value to the city, the property owners have agreed to pay $2,500. And whereas on March 26, 2020, the Board of Public Works declared the sewer easement surplus property for municipal purposes and recommended council's authorization of its release. And whereas amendment of the outfall easement requires approval by the Special Joint Committee of the Ithaca Wastewater Treatment Facility, of which the city is a member. And whereas the city charter requires approval by 3/4 of Common Council to authorize the divestment of real property. And whereas the city charter further requires notice of a proposed sale to be published no less than 1 week for 3 weeks, the first such notice being published no less than 30 days prior to the approval vote, and such notices have been published. Now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the Common Council of the City of Ithaca as follows, and I'll move as read.
Is there a second? Rob, thank you. Questions on this? No.
I do have a bit of, I do have a bit of background I can
Go
provide.
for it.
Yeah, okay. There are two easements at stake here, both of which are relevant to the City Harbor Development Project, both of which are necessary to the City Harbor Development Project. One easement is an easement that the city holds across the City Harbor parcel. From long, long ago, it was the old city sewer line, I believe, the outfall for the old wastewater treatment plant, which is now the Science Center. Staff assures us that it has no potential utility to our current wastewater treatment plant. And that's the one that's being abandoned. That's mostly what this action is about. That's what this ordinance tonight is predominantly about. The other easement that this ordinance is less about, but is also a little bit about, is amending the terms of the easement for our current outfall from the wastewater treatment plant. And the amendments to that are things like, what kind of sidewalk can go on the ground above the current outfall. The first of those actions, the first of those easements is an easement that we've done a fair amount of looking, as far as we can understand, it is held only by the city, not in the SJC's name. And that's because it's a very, very old easement from back before the wastewater treatment plant existed as a joint entity. The second of those easements is absolutely, which is the current outfall, is absolutely held on behalf of all three municipalities through the SJC and needs a vote of the SJC. So the ordinance before you tonight would do two things. The first is it would authorize the sale, meaning, and the legal word there is abandonment, of the easement for the old sewer outfall that we don't use and haven't used for a very long time. And the second would be to authorize, to give the city's stamp of approval on amendments that would still be negotiated a bit further in terms of exactly what kinds of things could happen basically on the ground above the current sewer outfall. That latter action would still be deferring to the SJC and the two other municipal partners in the SJC on final terms and final votes to choose to make those amendments. So that's the basic description of this. I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thanks. Any committee members have questions? Cynthia?
Yes, with regards to the easements, this has been a topic of discussion at our last two SJC meetings. Ari is absolutely right. The old sewer easement dating back to I believe 1937, is, I believe, in the city's name. However, there is some question as to whether or not this easement was transferred in ownership to the three partners when the new plant was agreed upon, I believe, in the early 80s. And what is still being investigated is if this easement is included as all easements and appurtenances that transferred in ownership to the new facility. So there is some question and still some research that is being conducted. We're looking for a wastewater facilities plan that was referenced in that agreement for the three partners to see if it is included there. So due to the question with regards to ownership or authorization over the old sewer easement, as well as the fact that language for the modified outfall easement was only recently received, in fact, last Friday, the SJC is asking that the City Administration Committee not act on this at this time, so that these two issues can be further clarified. The SJC actually meets earlier the same day as the City Administration Committee. And just as the resolution that you voted on earlier today, which was also something that we voted on at our meeting, if you hold off on this at this point, it'll give the SJC the opportunity to clarify these issues with Corinne and our attorney, and then bring to your committee the resolution that would just be in time with the actions of the SJC and still get it in front of Common Council in June. The representatives of City Harbor attended our meeting earlier today and agreed that that timeline would work with their project. They seem supportive of the strategy, and it would allow clarity with regards to, especially with regards to the old sewer easement, because if this were to go forward and it was found that the SJC actually had authorization over the old sewer easement, we'd be in a confusing situation where the other two partners may not act in a manner consistent with this ordinance that's before you today.
Go ahead, Ari.
No, thanks. So I don't believe that there. I'll say I am comfortable with the legal conclusion that we've reached, that sewer easement, which again has no utility to the current wastewater treatment plant, as I understand it, is city property straight up. It's titled as city property. When you look at those 1980s transactions, it does not. It even suggests when you really put that evidence together that this really is just city property. And so I wouldn't be recommending this to council or to committee at this point if I didn't believe that the city was within its rights to move forward in this respect, nor do I think it endangers anything. All of that said, I also agree that it is no great problem to wait another month if that is the committee's leaning. So that's fine if that's the way you prefer to go. We were not aware of those objections until extremely recently, and therefore this was already on the agenda and I think made sense to move forward with if people were comfortable, but it sounds like they're not.
So Ari, procedurally, we vote on this tonight. SJC votes per the section 2 of the end of the resolution, then we're okay. It's only if SJC were to come to a different conclusion that we would have to do something different in the future. Well,
I think that may be true, but Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're saying that SJC is hoping to have until the next city admin agenda in May city admin to process this. Is that right? As opposed to being ready in time for May council.
Yes, we actually brought this to the attention of the city before the BPW meeting. We had asked for this to be clarified before it went to BPW. By delaying it a month, it'll allow more investigation to the wastewater facilities plan that was mentioned in that original agreement. Again, we hope we have subcommittees put together to work on these things and to have things in place so that we can have a resolution for our next SJC meeting, which is the same day as this meeting. And then it would allow everything to move forward. You know, what we basically want to make sure is that all three partners are in agreement with the strategy. I think that there is a growing understanding of the easement and its importance or lack of importance in the future as an outfall. Sorry, we have a feedback thing going on. So the plan is to have a resolution for you at your next CA meeting that can go on to the June council agenda.
So if the committee wants to go in that direction, then my advice would be to table the current resolution to next month's city admin agenda. If instead you'd prefer to move ahead as presented, I don't think there's anything wrong with either approach, to be honest, but there is something, I guess, more collaborative about waiting a month given the request from the SJC. So.
Yeah. I just want to ask a clarifying question. We won't need to change the language of this resolution unless, what I'm worried about is the timing, right? So if you're saying the meeting happens immediately before the CA meeting, that is not time to put something on an agenda if it is going to be different than what this resolution is that we just read tonight.
Yes, exactly. And so by putting together these subcommittees that are working specifically on this, we will hopefully have, if there were any changes in the way it's written, most likely not. But if there were any changes, we would be able to get it to you in time to get it onto your agenda, as well as my agenda, which has the same deadline submittals as your agenda. So the ideal is to get everything in place before your meeting next month.
Deb, for what it's worth, my best guess would be that the primary changes would just be to the terms of the easement for the current outfall, which does indeed need some tinkering, and that would have happened regardless, even if you voted this through tonight. And that will be ultimately subject to an SJC vote anyway, and that's fine. So that wouldn't change this resolution, though.
Okay, that was my concern, is that we needed to prep a whole new resolution.
Yeah, I think not. We'll keep an eye out for that. If committee chooses to table right now, then to next month's CA agenda, then we will keep an eye out for any potential changes in terms of what the SJC looks like it's about to do, and try to make sure that that gets incorporated into next month's CA agenda. But
and we are working closely with Corinne and Susan Brock to put all of this together. So it will be happening in collaboration with both attorneys.
No, I think that's true. I do hope we'll all keep in mind that what we're talking about is an old sewer pipe that hasn't been used in decades, and that our staff tells us could not possibly be used for anything currently, and not invest too much process around it. But yes.
Sure. No, I don't deny that at all. Yes.
So I guess I'm looking for
I'll move the table.
What was that, George?
I'll move to table.
Is there a second? Rob? Okay. Discussion or questions on tabling? Okay. So we'll do roll call. Graham?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
And I'm a yes as well, so that's unanimous. So we will table this till next month. Great. So those are all of our voting items. We have had Shelley on our agenda as a standing item to talk about our implementation teams. but I think she just has a very brief update to give us this evening, right, Shelley?
Yeah, yes, I do. Very brief. And I turned off the video because it kept sticking, so I didn't know if it would affect my talking.
You're
But
fine.
quickly, I just wanted to let you know, after careful deliberations, we've decided to put the implementation teams on pause until the fall. And it's primarily due to the economic uncertainties and the unavailability of key individuals. So we think that's in the best interest given what's going on now.
Okay,
That's
great.
it.
I think we understand that. Donna? You're muted.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, what do you mean by the unavailability of key individuals?
Yes, so this is actually, I guess what's the saying, a blessing and a curse. I mean, we had such a great response from representation across the organization, DPW, police, fire, management. And at this point in time, those public safety organizations it's not sort of the primary focus. And management, we've been consumed with everything that's going on right now. So that's what I mean by key individuals. The representation, there's more than half of the individuals are not available to even start doing the work that's necessary for this.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Shelley? Okay, does anyone have any agenda items? I know that we've talked about this a couple times. Just to let everybody know, Dan and I talked briefly the other day. We think we may have to set a very different series of budget meetings for this year. So I'm just preparing everyone for an October and a November filled with budget meetings. We are going to schedule them in the event that our budget might need to be modified in ways that we don't anticipate because we just have a lot of question marks right now. So we are concerned that if we restrict ourselves to just October for the deliberations, that may not be enough given what we potentially could be facing. So I don't know who's going to take the lead on that. Dan, do you and I want to maybe map out some possible dates, or Steve, maybe the three of us can figure out what looks good, and then we'll put a proposed schedule out to everyone?
That sounds good. I'm just thinking we also need to pay attention to how our what we're legally required to do under our charter. I don't know if we're supposed to adopt a budget and a tax rate by a certain date or whatever.
I believe it's by the December council meeting.
Okay, good.
So as long as we can fit, we have in the past held some November meetings in case we don't pass it at the November council meeting. Is that right, Steve?
Yes, actually, that's correct. And I actually threw together some dates today and
Oh,
I
good.
started that process. So I think, Dan, I sent it to you, but Deb, I didn't send it to you, and I'll do that.
Okay, great.
Make sure you get on that list.
Okay. Yeah, we are just concerned that we might need a different kind of deliberating, or we may even need to take a look at our budget process for this year, given what we'll be facing. So. Okay, great.
Yeah. Just
Go ahead, Rob.
a question about, I think maybe you're hinting at that with the budget process, but we've taken such great advantage of doing sort of pre-budget season meetings. I know it's a very different time this year, but I'm wondering if there's going to be some important moments there that we need to be aware of, or maybe even help create some guidance around or something, and how we're thinking about doing that in advance of October.
Yeah, we may keep the committee of the whole Wednesdays. I think we originally had said possibly, we're looking at like July, August, September. I think, I don't know what's going to go on with capital projects, right? So that's one that we typically had done as a separate meeting as a committee of the whole. If it makes sense to do a capital projects review outside of the budget process, that's fine. One of the reasons we talked about looking into November a little bit more is because there are so many question marks. We just don't even know, I know one of the ones that we had looked at doing is bringing, police back in to take more of a look at overtime and whatnot. And our operations are so up in the air right now. We don't even know if that information would be useful at this point in time, right? What we may end up having to have council meetings over, and I'm not trying to sound alarmist in any way, is we may need to have extremely serious deliberations over, are there services the city has to stop doing either on a permanent or temporary basis? And so what we might need to use some of those special meetings for are talking very seriously about, are there things we have to stop doing even though we might want to continue them? We have no roadmap for this. And I know Steve is not looking forward to what our April sales tax numbers are going to look like. And I think once we get a full month's picture of what it looks like when we've been in lockdown for one full month, we might be able to forecast that a little bit better. Steve, I'm going to ask if you have anything else to add to that.
No, I think you captured a lot of it. On the list, I did include some dates before the budget, because we may have to look at our 2020 budget and make changes. That's very possible. But certainly, yeah, the sales tax, we won't get a good picture of that until our May collections, because our April collections related to February, and they were down a little bit, but as I expected, not a huge amount. But certainly the May collections and definitely June are really going to show us what's going on here. And so very nervous about those and expecting some significant changes there. So yeah, we'll have to look at the budget, 2020 budget, as well as the impact on 2021 budget.
Right, so some of those special meetings we might have planned maybe are not going to be special topic meetings. They might be special adjustment to the current budget. So we'll have to see.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I need a motion to adjourn. I see Graham. Is there a second? I thought that was Laura. I was like, Laura, what are you doing? Rob is seconding. So we'll do roll call. Graham.
Ooh, this is a tough one. Aye.
Rob.
Yes.
Doug.
Aye.
George. George is frozen. George, are you voting to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, as am I. So we are now adjourned. Hopefully I will see your faces in person sooner rather than later, but if not, thank you for your patience with this new way of meeting, and we'll see everybody at the council meeting in a few weeks.